Hello and welcome to our video about the results section of your paper in APA style. So, because of the incredibly large amount of information that it is possible to include in the results section, depending on the statistical technique you used, this video will focus more on the formatting of the tables and figures, and also to show you how the results section should look like. So for example, as I said, there is a lot of information that you can include in the case of for example, multivariate analysis of variance, regression analysis, structural equation modeling analysis, or hierarchical linear modeling. Then you should, for example, report in your results the associated means, sample sizes, variance matrix, correlation matrices, and so on and so forth. So in these cases, the inclusion of these results represent a sufficient set of statistics. And if you are going to report in your results inferential statistical tests like TF or chi-square values, then you have to include the obtained magnitude or value of the test statistic, the degrees of freedom, the probability values, which is the exact p-value, the size and the direction of the effect, and so on and so forth. So it's an incredibly, as I said, incredibly vast amount of information that you can include. Also, there is some specific way to write this. I'm going to show that. And yeah, I'm just trying to make this video as short as possible. So, but however, I will make sure to include examples of how to report some sets of statistics. If in this video I don't have enough time, I will make another one for the formatting of the tables or the figures, and probably on the blog I will create a post only for you to for your reference. So let's get right to it. The results section contains all the results but no conclusion. The purpose of this section is to supply enough information so the reader can understand the basis upon which you reached your conclusions. Therefore, the results section summarizes the data collected and the statistical treatment of them. Of course, this is a really shortened version of what you should supply in the results section, but I think it's better for you if we keep things like this. Also, you can include a brief statement about the significance of your comparisons if you are making any. The order of the presentation of the result is usually descriptive statistics, followed by demographic analysis, and then finally the inferential statistics. And the results should be also presented in the order that they were found when you calculate them in the first place. So for example, you report first the F score and then the post hoc test result. Now in the Word document that we are working, we already placed all our descriptive data in the method section, so it is up to you if you want to include again this information in the results section. Just briefly mention it. I will show you in a minute how I did it. So to summarize, if these descriptive statistics are not reported in the method section, you must do it here. And these results could be reported in a single table or as text if they're there is only a small amount of data to report, and report the data in sufficient detail just to justify your conclusions. However, this sufficient detail is, according to APA, and I agree, is almost impossible to specify because each analytic technique depends on different aspects on the data and the assumptions. So the APA guide gives, however, a set that should be included. One is the one cell in the table for the sample sizes, another cell is the observed means, and another for the standard deviations. This is really important. So for now, let's go to our Word document to see an example. And as you can see, the same like in the previous video, I already included the information in the text in order to save time. So here we have our title, results. You see, you don't start a new page for the results, you just continue where you left from the method section. As I said before, although we already include this information in the method section, we can include it briefly here. For example, here we have a little bit about the demographics of the participants and some information about the Chromebox Alpha. Remember, just a quick note, nothing is in this document, nothing is really related. I'm just taking, for example, information from a report or the paper that I already wrote, and that's why, for example, in the method section I made an example of where I had 1,200 participants, but here in the results you see that my participants were 40 and from Colombia. So this is only for you to see how this should look like. Also in the results you have to specify which test you conducted. So if you made an independent sample t-test, as is the case here, or if you made an ANOVA, MANOVA, MANCOVA, and so on and so forth, you have to state this information here. Also, if you did something with the scales you were working, or the items, or anything that affected the result, you have to report that here. Now, tables and figures are a very important part of the result section. So here's one way you can inform the reader that they have to look a table or that there is important information. So one is that you write something here like this, and then in parentheses, you write table 2 or table 3, or you can also write C table 2 in parentheses. Another way is without parentheses, you see, and you write C table 1 or 2 or 3 for means and standard deviations for the blah blah blah. Now, in the results section, you can also, you should actually write if the assumptions, for example, of your tests were met, or if they don't. So, for example, I have an I have a paragraph here. So, as you can see here, I am reporting that some measures did not meet the assumption of normal distribution according to this Kolmogorov-Smirnov test. However, I am doing a justification why despite having not met this criteria of normal distribution, this assumption of normally distributed data, why I am including this. So I'm saying there were no outliers in the distribution, implying that this parametric test could be still used. And here's the reference where I'm basing this statement. Okay, so also the effect sizes do not depend on the distribution of the sample size and provide direct evidence on the practical significance of the results. So there is a rationale here about why I decided to include something, and so on and so forth. So now let's take a look at the table itself. So the first thing, you always write table and then in Arabic numbers the number of the table. Do not include table comma 1 or table minus 1, no, nothing, just table 1, no period at the end, nothing. Then you write the title of the table and must be in italics. Make sure that it's not too long and also short enough that the people know what the table is showing just by looking at the title. Now, as you already know, the font size for everything in APA style must be 12 times New Roman. And let me change something here. I just noticed a mistake. This is justified and we want flush left. So fixed. In the tables, I'm sorry, I just deviate for a second. The tables, you can't use smaller font size. The APA recommends from 8, no smaller than 8 points, no bigger than 12. And also, you know that we are using here double space. In the tables you can use double space or single spacing. It's up to you. How do you make the decision? You simply need to think about readable. You simply have to think how easy it is to read the table. So for example, here you see that this table is one part in this page and another part in this page. Usually, if you have no alternative, you leave it like that. When you actually submit the paper, you have to submit the tables and the figures as separate files, and it's the job of the journal to include these tables in the final publication. So in this case, let's try to make this table small enough to fit this space. So the first thing I'm going to do is change the spacing from 2 to 1, and I'm going to change the font size from 12 to 9. Now as you can see, the table fits perfectly. However, this table is not the space of the cells here, the spaces are not even, so we can just select the table, go to to layout, outfit, and click outfit contents. Now you have the table here. You can center the table, and that's it. So let's go back. I like the way it is right now here. And here we have another examples of tables. For example, here are correlations among the descriptive statistics for key study variables. This is another study, and in this case, for example, you see that the correlations that you know are 1, sex with sex, age with age, income with income, are not being reported. It's up to you if you want to include them, but I actually never do it because it's useless, pointless. So it's better to include the correlations of the other variables. Another thing here, when you have abbreviations like here, you have to place a note at the end, at the bottom of the table, saying note MSES equals math self-efficacy at school, MSEH equals math self-efficacy at home. I will create perhaps another document or another blog post where I show you in detail all the footnotes that you can make in a table, when to do it, how to do it, and so on. Another thing is that if you decide to make this one space or two space in between, you need to be consistent. Do not say, for example, these two one space and these two double spacing. That doesn't look good, so be consistent. Inconsistency doesn't mean that if you use one single spacing for this table, you have to do the same with this. You can use here double space. It's perfectly fine, and 11 or 12 the font size. In this case also you want to include the p-value, and you have to mark with asterisks the values that you have to mark for the p-value. Now finally, let's see an example of a multiple linear regression analysis. I took this example from this website. You can see the link on the Word document. As usual, I will upload it. And let's take a look here to the table first. So you see the number of the table, the title in italics, and here you see the table itself. So let's take a look here at this line. I want you to once again pay attention that every time you have this sign, the equal sign, you have to leave a space, one space before and after. You do not report like this. That looks awful. So just make a space. When you report p-values, you leave a space between the p and this symbol. Do not do like this. Here you are reporting confidence intervals. APA actually suggests strongly to include confidence intervals. So make sure you include them in your report. Now, this is how this table looks, but let me quickly show you how to do it. So let's save this document. Let's go to insert, table, and let's say you have a table like this. So here you always center all the cells. And now let's say you have here, let's try to make a table similar like the first one. So you have here boys. Okay, the font has been changed. Yeah, so boys in 67, girls n equals 72. Here you have, I don't know, scale 1, scale 2, scale 3, I don't know. And let's say we are going to report the means and standard deviations. So we will need another row here. So let's right click here. We are going to insert rows below. Now let's right click here, split cells, number of columns 1, rows 2. I'm sorry, was the other way. So 2 columns, 2 rows. Here are the same, 2 columns, 1 row, sorry. So here you write mean here standard deviation, mean standard deviation. And actually you have to do the same with the splitting of the cells, I'm sorry. So you have to split them one by one, but that's easy. Just right click, split cells, and by default Word is giving you 2 columns, 1 row. So shouldn't take more than, I don't know, 20 seconds or 30 seconds. Let's get rid of this column. And now, how you report? Remember, you have to write table 4 or the number of the table, and here means score for scales of math self-efficacy. And as you already know, italics. And now select the table, come here and say no border. Make sure you have the top border. So select the first row, come here, click on top. You can also click bottom. Here you can do the same. Bottom, bottom, and here also bottom. So as you can see here, I know this table has something wrong, I mean APA wise, but what I wanted to show you was that with this drop down menu you can control the look of the table. You need to make sure in APA style you do not include vertical lines ever. You always include, or you only include, horizontal lines, and you need the top and the bottom at least, and usually this one also, and this one usually at the bottom. And here you can also, for example, use the underline if you don't want to use the bottom here, and you can see how does it look. Let's select our table, say 1, and if you want you can press enter here, and now you have a nice separation between this subtitle and the actual scores. And you have to also make italics for the note text, the title, not for the text. So that's how you format these tables here. I know I'm doing this a little bit fast. I'm not going into much detail thinking about the time of the video, which I think is already too long. So as I said at the beginning, I'm going to make another video where I'm going to show you a little bit more about the tables and we will discuss about figures, how to include your graphs that you generated in SPSS or in R, M+, I don't know which statistical software you are using. And yeah, so thank you very much for your time, and I hope you find this video useful. So see you in the next one. Bye.